Alright, guy I was delivering the hay to didn't get back with me till kind of late, so it's almost 6 o'clock. And just got hooked to the trailer here. I'm gonna haul this load, so it's gonna be partly in the dark, but anywho, I'm gonna haul it nonetheless. So a few things to get used to here is going to be the integrated brake controller here on the truck, and then just how well the truck pulls here. Again, this is well, you've seen it in some other videos, it's a 30-foot Deal tandem gooseneck, 20 pound, and like I said, I've always pulled it with that little tractor truck, but I'm gonna pull it with this truck now, see how it does. So I'm gonna get it loaded up here as quick as I can, strapped down. About an hour drive to get this delivered. So that's the plan. That's how it's working out. I'll have to find the Alabama football game on the radio for all you football fans out there. Roll Tide, yeah. Anyway, at some point I'll let you know how it did. See ya. Alright folks, got the truck loaded here. Let some of you get the first outside shots of the truck here. But anyway, I'm about to I'm just kind of holding this GoPro here without a handle, but I'm gonna throw a strap on here real quick and get going. It's squatted a little bit on the back. I got 14 rolls on here. I usually carry 15. I can get one on the gooseneck up there, but I'm not going to do that on this load just yet. So those are 4 foot wide by 5.5 foot tall bales. Those are a little bigger than my normal 4x5s, but I figure they weigh in maybe 1,200 pounds a piece, so that's 14. You can do the math. The trailer probably weighs 4,500 to 5,000. So yeah, you can do the math on that. I hadn't looked on the springs to see if our axle's bottomed out. I don't think it is. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm gonna find out what it'll do here in a minute. Shouldn't be no problem. It don't look like it's really overloaded any worse than I've overloaded one before. So anyway, it may not even be overloaded. So yeah, I'll give y'all an update on how I think it pulled and how well it did at some point. Thanks. Okay, I got the load of hay hauled the other night, and I'm going to try to piece this video together that I've got involving it with just a bit to tell him. But anyway, I was just wanting to let you know how that went, and what I thought of the truck here pulling. It was dark. I took a video, as you've probably already seen that part, as we walked around the truck with the hay loaded on there. But, anyway, it was dark just shortly after that. I really couldn't take any video. So thought I'd wait till I had a little daylight here. Tell you how that went. But anywho, the truck performed well. As far as the motor, the Cummins, and the power, it did fine. I expected no issues there. I knew it would do the job. The transmission is the same transmission I had in my black 08. Again, it's the only two automatics that I've had. The 08 was the first automatic. Everything before that was manual, or other than that was manual. But the things that concerned me with the truck were, it was a 3/4 ton, or it is a 3/4 ton, and it's a single rear wheel. It's not a dually. It is a short bed, or standard bed. I should say short bed, standard bed. It's not a long wheelbase like the previous 3/4 ton I had. Of course, the dualies are long wheelbase, but this truck with the crew cab is actually longer than the double cab, they call it, which have a smaller rear area. So taking that into account with the standard bed, the truck is very similar to length of a double cab long bed. Might be a touch shorter, but it's close. So that was the concern. And this truck has the 343, 342, I can't remember, gears, rear axle. So I was a little concerned on how well it would do. I'm starting out, getting the trailer rolling. So here are my thoughts. As far as the weight is concerned, like I said, that's a 20K pound, 30-foot dual tandem gooseneck. That trailer weighs probably between 4,500 and 5,000 pounds empty. And then I put 14 4x5.5 foot rolls on there that I'm going to estimate weigh around 1,200 pounds apiece. Assuming they were 1,000 pounds apiece, that was at least 14,000 pounds plus the weight of the trailer. So let's say somewhere around 19 to 20,000 pounds of weight there. That's going to be my estimate. I didn't put it on a set scale, so I can't tell you for sure. The truck's going to weigh in somewhere around 7,500 pounds. I hadn't looked that up, but that's where they all seem to be in that neighborhood. So I was probably pushing the 27,000 pound total weight area. So watching this intersection here. When I first pulled out with it there, it took off with it fine on level ground. Seemed okay. The brake controller, the integrated brake controller, I was having to get used to it a little bit. I like to set the brake controller, or the proper way to set it, I believe, is to have your trailer brakes just slightly braking the trailer a little bit more than the truck brakes is. So what I mean by that is when I touch the brakes, I want to feel a little bit of tug backwards on the trailer. Not a lot, just a little bit. If I'm not feeling that, then I don't know where my trailer brakes are set. They could be too light. But I like to go up on them until I just feel a little bit of a tug over the truck brakes. And that's where I let them sit. Set the dink with that a little bit. It numbers a little different on the game. All the aftermarket brake controllers I've ran were they went from 0 to like 100 in point steps of 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I'd usually run them in the, well, they varied. Some of them acted different than others. Usually in the 35 to 40 range, you know. Like I said, you can step 35, 36, 37. This one only goes from 1 to 10, and it only steps 0.5, so I was running it like 6.0 to 6.5. I think I wound up leaving it on 7.0, so I don't know if that is a ratio of percentage braking compared to the truck braking or what, but anyway, like I said, it seemed to work okay. As far as it being the 3/4 ton and a single rear wheel, I was very impressed. The last 3/4 ton I had, I never hauled that much weight on it. I did have a deal tandem trailer then, but it was a 25 footer, and I could only get, I think, 11 rolls on that one of that size, so it would sway a little bit. And that was one of the reasons I went from it to the Dualies, because of safety concerns there. Worried about blowing a rear tire on the truck, losing control of the truck trailer. So I went to the Dualies. So I was a little concerned about going back to a single rear wheel to pull that kind of weight. But I must say, I was very impressed with the handling of the truck. Matter of fact, I would put it right up with the 08 I had. I mean, it really didn't, I didn't feel any sway in it at all. These are 18-inch tires on the truck. I did have 80 psi in the back tires. That is the recommended pressure. My last trucks, I don't think any of my other trucks spec to go over 65. Even the Dually was 65 psi in each tire, so this is running a higher tire pressure. Now my other trucks did have more of an all-terrain tires on them. This is more of a highway tire, which I did find working on the combine there the other day and pulling around the edge of that field that they don't haul worth a flip in slightly tacky conditions. The tread just fills up and then you spin. So I did use the four-wheel drive a few times off and on the other day, just spinning on top of the ground there. So they do drive and ride good. Like I said, they hauled that load pretty good, so I ain't gonna go jumping to change them out or anything for a more aggressive off-road all-terrain tires. So that costs money. But yeah, hardly any sway. I did, when I was getting closer to my destination to unload the hay, I got into got on a back road there that kind of it made a dip sideways and then up and a dip sideways like that. Any of you pulls that kind of weight, you know that'll kind of pull your rear end a little bit. Of course, I felt that, but you're gonna feel that on any truck. But yeah, I mean, I ran at 55 mile an hour up this road. I ran between 65 and 70 mile an hour up the interstate with it, and then up the road, up those back roads up just south of the Tennessee lines where I went. But anyway, very impressed with how it handled the weight. I did look at the rear axle before I left to see how close it was to the rubber stops the axle will hit there on the frame, and it had about 3 inches maybe of clearance under that, so I wasn't anywhere near bottom in the truck out, and I never felt it hit those either. Going down my road, which is kind of rough and whatnot, so that did real well. As far as the gearing of the truck, there was only one spot where I pulled out that I could, I felt like I really had to give it fuel for it to get moving, and that was at the end of my road. You kind of pointed uphill just a little bit. And when you get on the road, you got to go over the edge of the road, hump on the road there a little bit, and then you're going kind of back uphill again. So that was the only place that really pulled on it to kind of get going. As far as that goes, the exhaust brake works just as good as my 08, if not better. They're probably the same. It holds the truck back well. The transmission seemed to keep itself geared properly, a little better than my 08. I always had trouble with my 08, especially if you put it in tow haul mode, which I hardly ever ran in my 08. I'd rather just shift it with the manual buttons here and keep it in the torque range than let it decide where it thought it wanted to shift. So that seemed to be a little better. Going down the road at about 55, it did keep it in 5th gear, which kept the RPMs around 15 to 1600 RPM, and that was fine. That was keeping the engine in an area that, from the knowledge that I have, should have been keeping my AGT's exhaust gas temperature at the turbo. For those of y'all that don't know what that means, should have been keeping them at a good temperature. Had a man tell me, dairy farmer, he kept Dodge trucks. He would actually buy them, tear them all apart in the shop, rebuild them. He actually, the last truck he had, I don't know if his family still got that truck or not. He bought it was an 05 Dilly off somebody that had put gas in the motor, gas in the tank, and ran the mower, that blew the rings in the motor. He bought that truck off of him, completely tore that Cummins apart, and rebuilt it, put it back together, and I think he put about 5,000 miles on it, and a similar issue occurred, and he had to tear it all apart again. So I think he had it bored and honed and everything on that time, put it back together, and he's good to go. Anyway, I had him tell me, he said, you get down around 1,300, 1,200 RPMs tugging on these trucks, and that's when, when you're pulling under load, that's when you get those exhaust gas temperatures up high enough that you could hurt, say, the turbo. So, he always said on the manual transmissions, when you get close to the 1,400 RPM range, to go ahead and make your shift to keep the RPMs in the between 2,000 and 1,500 RPM there, and your exhaust gas temperature should stay at a safe level. So that's something I always watch for and try to do. I don't have any way of seeing those exhaust gas temperatures on this truck so far, unless I put some kind of monitor in here to see that, but or a gauge. Anyway, on the interstate, it also stayed in 5th gear. Got up at 65 mile an hour. Now, if I got it up to 70, it would go ahead and make a shift into 6th. And again, once it hit 6th, it was sitting around that 1,500 RPM range. In 5th gear at 65 mile an hour, it was running about 19 to 2,000 RPM, which seemed to be a good spot for it to pull on up the interstate. Addition to the weight going up the interstate, also had the wind resistance of that hay back there, so does add a little bit of an increased load. So the only complaint I'm gonna have about it pulled good. Other than this, is I'm not very impressed with the tow haul mode. I've always had an issue with a truck that wants to downshift itself when you start applying the brakes and slowing down to try to hold you back. Now I understand the theory there, and that's all fine and dandy. But when it over revs a truck, now most people that drove gas engines and hadn't been around farm equipment or diesels all their lives, and they buy them a diesel truck for whatever reason. You know, a gasoline motor can rev up to, 3,000, 4,000 RPM, and not too big a deal. I don't like to see that on a diesel engine. I don't like to see one get over 3,000 RPM. I only like to see it get near it. And it's just me. And one of the things they do with these trucks is if you're in tow haul mode, you start slowing down, applying the brakes, it starts gearing down to hold you back, and it will have a mind of its own, and it will get the RPMs up too high, and I just don't like it. The exhaust brake does very well to hold you back. Now, the first time I come to a stop and I had the tow haul mode exhaust brake on, I was a little impressed. It actually, I was coming down to that stop, and so I was running about 1,500 RPM. I let off the accelerator, and the exhaust brake kicked in, and it was holding it back, and I was slowing down. As I slowed down, it decided to downshift, and the RPMs went up to about 2,000 RPM, and it continued holding the truck back with the exhaust brake and the engine. As it got close to 1,500 RPM again, it made another shift, and it progressively did that down through every gear as I was just coming up to the stop sign, and I was applying very minimal, sometimes letting off the brakes, and I just eased down to that stop. I was very impressed with that. That worked fine. And I was slowing down through that whole process. Now, on my 08, if you had tow haul mode and exhaust brake on, that process would be very violent. It would actually jerk the truck. It'd throw you forward towards the steering wheel when it would shift and the exhaust brake kicked in. So they've refined the programming a little there, in my opinion. Now, here's what I don't like about it. As I was coming on, going on down the road, there's a point where I have to go down a steep hill. And I should have just reached down and turned the exhaust brake. Not the exhaust brake, the tow haul mode, turned it off. I come to that hill, and of course I let off the accelerator, exhaust brake kicked in, and it was maintaining pretty good speed, and I just slightly eased down to the brake. It downshifted. Boy, it flew up to about 3,000 RPM, and I could not get it to. I turned the tow haul mode off, it would not come out of it, and it stayed that way all the way to the bottom of the hill. I hate that. I don't like that. If it's at 2,000 RPM, the exhaust brake running, and it's maintaining a fairly constant speed, I'll use the brakes just a little bit to help maintain that if I need to. But I don't like it over-revving the motor. Now, some of you probably say, well, that ain't over-revving, but it sounds like it's screaming, and I don't like it. And I especially didn't want that happening here on the new motor. I was trying to progressively be easy on it, but it did. It didn't come out till I got to the bottom of the hill and was actually into the gas for a good stretch, and it finally came out. So it's going to be like my 08. I'm going to have to know coming up on a hill like that, just take it out of tow haul, because it's just going to I just don't like it doing that. As far as the tow haul and going up through the gears, it seemed fine. I didn't really notice a lot of difference between it being in it or out of it. It pretty much, it decided when to shift at the proper time, and it wasn't going to attempt to get on into 6th gear. It knew it was pulling a load. So now it knows when you're hooked to a trailer. It knows when the trailer brakes are hooked up, and I don't know if it shifts based on knowing the fact that you do have something back there where you've got the tow haul button pushed or not. It automatically turned my parking sensors off when I hooked those up. Of course, the trailer brake controller went active, and as soon as I unhooked from the trailer, I got messages on the screen telling me that it was disconnected and whatnot. So it's smart enough to know when you are hooked to a trailer and pulling. So that's that. But yeah, other than that, it did real good. When I got to where I was going, I got out of the truck. I never turned it off. I didn't know how hot the turbo was. I let it idle. I could smell a little bit of a hot smell. It's more of like something new getting warm for the first time. Some of you probably know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there's lots of components involving the engine there, transmission, that got hot for the first time. So I could smell that a little bit. I did. Excuse me. I did use the high idle feature on the truck. My 08 had that too. While I was sitting there unloading me, just so it would help keep things progressively cooling down. The high idle, don't know about it. In park, put your parking brake on. So take your foot, put on your parking brake, or emergency brake, and then take your cruise control, turn it on, and then hit your set button on your cruise control, and you should see your RPMs rise to about 1100 RPM. And if you want to increase that, you can use the plus button on your cruise control to increase your RPMs up to, I think, around 1500. I think it may max out. I don't remember. Or you can bring it back down with the minus button, but it'll stay that way until you tap the brake pedal and take off the parking brake. But that was active on this truck when I got it. The manual did say you had to take it to the dealer to have that activated. I did have to activate it on my 08, so I don't know if they all come that way or not. So if that's something you want, you got one of these trucks, you can probably take it to the dealer and have it turned on if it ain't on already. But anyway, I turned the high on. I had my gauge readout here on where I was monitoring engine temperature, transmission temperature, coolant temperature, and the engine oil temperature. The engine temperature while pulling barely hit 200 degrees. It may have just barely went over a time or two, but it kept it in the 190s for the most part. The transmission temperature while pulling stayed about 175, which was pretty good. I thought in the oil temperature stayed around 200. And what was that other one? Was it so I said coolant, transmission, oil temperature. I guess the other one was oil pressure. Yeah. oil pressure stays around 50 psi. Yeah, the oil temperature stayed about 200. Trans 175, engine about 195. What I noticed when I got there and was getting unloaded, everything was coming down in temperature, for the most part, except for the transmission. The transmission went up to right at 190s, getting close to 200. It wasn't coming down, and I don't know if that's because the transmission coolers are down low and the engine fan was not pulling air through them, because what happened was as soon as I got back out on the road, those temperatures came right back down. So as air was being forced through them moving down the road. So I don't know about that. I would have liked for the truck to have been able to have cooled that down while it was sitting there at high idle. It was not. I hate to see the transmission get near 200 degrees, but if it don't really ever go over, it'll probably be okay. But so yeah, that's my rambling on about it. I think it did very well overall. I think it's going to be a good pulling truck. I think I could have put more weight on it and been fine. Not a lot, but a little bit more. But very impressed overall. The tow haul mode with the downshifting, going downhill, they need to improve that. I don't like that. Yeah, I've got about 820 miles on it now, so still a lot to be determined. I did crawl under the truck yesterday. I had just a few minutes. I thought after pulling that load and getting everything warmed up for the first time, I would just take a peek under there and make sure I didn't see any leaks or anything going on. And as far as I could tell, everything was dry as a bone. I looked up under the transmission, up and down the side of the motor, and got me a flashlight. I peered around the top head of the motor and around everywhere, looked around the turbo good, looked around the four-wheel drive casing. Everything seemed to be good there. So anyway, this has been another long video, and hopefully it has been informative to some of you, and the rest of you, I just hope you found it interesting. So that's that. I'll do another video of the truck at some point later in time and let you know how well it is continuing to do or not. I think it'll be alright. Thanks for watching as usual. Comment, rate, and subscribe at will, and I'll see y'all later.